For firms delivering knowledge-based services, agility, access to the right information, and continual collaboration are the keys to success. Welcome to Evergreen and Empower, a family of next-generation cloud solutions built on Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Microsoft Azure, and natively integrated with your familiar productivity apps and Microsoft 365. This combination offers a modern experience that is connected, adaptable, and intelligent. Evergreen is the back-end transactional engine for core professional service functions like project management, time and billing, scheduling, and client onboarding, while the Empower Suite provides a rich, interactive front-end user experience, which is completely adapted to how and where you want to work. For day-to-day tasks such as reporting and analytics, you can use either Microsoft Teams or the browser. And for time entry and approvals, you have the additional option to deploy via rich and powerful mobile apps, so your mobile workforce can interact easily anytime, anywhere, and on any device. And because it's all based on the familiar look and feel of Microsoft 365, application adoption is fast and easy. Our goal is to meet you where you are, so you can deploy Evergreen and Empower either independently or fully integrated with your existing systems, such as finance, billing, or CRM. The choice is yours, and your ability to extend our solutions doesn't stop there. You can also use the Microsoft Power Platform to easily build custom and automated experiences with zero to minimal coding. Our solutions are built on the Microsoft platform, giving you the consistency and transparency you need, and hence one version of the truth. Through this single platform, the Empower Suite of Power BI reports lets you visualize and analyze your data. And that's not all. With our purpose-built artificial intelligence apps, you can easily derive actionable and predictive analytics to outsmart, outpace, and outperform the competition. As true cloud-based solutions, Evergreen and Empower deliver continual enhancements and upgrades, with the option of scalability and dramatically reduced hardware costs. So wherever you are on your business transformation journey, we're ready to meet you whether you want to start small or go all out. For more about how Evergreen, Empower, and sa.global can support you on your journey to excellence in the cloud, please visit www.sa.global.com/future-now.
So, a very, very good afternoon, distinguished delegates. We're delighted to have you here amongst us to share your knowledge and insights at the CXO Boardroom, hosted by the globally renowned tech giant, Microsoft and SA Global. Well, on behalf of SA Global and Microsoft, we thank you all for joining us. My name is Bhavna Bhatia, and I shall be your host for today. Well, today's discussion will be on the role of modern finance in accelerating transformation. Well, I'm pleased to introduce to you our esteemed speakers. We've got Kapil Gupta, India Country Manager and Head of the Global Services Center, SA Global. Joining him on the panel are Rekha, Talluri, the CFO, Microsoft India, Amanda Whitfield, Program Manager, Finance Transformation, SA Global, and Priyadarshini L, Head of Product Development and Delivery, SA Global India. Well, I'd like to humbly welcome all our esteemed speakers and thank you for your time today. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take you through topics such as how technology is creating new opportunities for the finance function to add value to the business, and how can finance teams evolve to make the most of these opportunities. Also, we're looking at talking about insights from Microsoft's digital transformation journey and how Microsoft's finance team address challenges from the revenue to resources with technology. Also, the role of CFOs as change makers to drive business transformation, and how should organizations go beyond checkboxes to evaluate an ERP. Well, to make this boardroom more engaging and insightful, we would urge everyone present here to share your questions or comments, if any, in the chat box during the course of the boardroom. Remember, post our panel discussion, we're going to be taking a few questions live in interest of time. Also, without any further ado, let's begin the session, and we hope that you all have a great one. Well, with this, I'd like to now humbly pass on the live baton to none other than Kapil Gupta to take it forth with his panel. Over to you, Kapil, and welcome once again.
Thanks a lot, Bhavna. I think you gave a very good start to the session. I would take this opportunity, first of all, to welcome all the guests here. I'm just looking at the list, and it's so humbling to see people joining in from companies that are fast-growing startups in the India environment. We have some very well-known ITS companies as well who have joined here, and at the same time, we have product companies. So it's a very good representation of the professional services industry, the ITS firms that we really serve. Let me do a quick introduction about SA Global to start with. SA Global, you've seen the video, but we are primarily a company that is dedicated towards the cause of professional services and firmly devoted towards the Microsoft business platforms, technology through which we really serve our clients. We are present across 25 countries, more than 30 years of experience in this space. People who represent here, who are here, are basically coming in from such deep experience as well. With that, I think I would want to quickly introduce our panelists. Rekha really doesn't need any introduction. CFO of Microsoft India, comes with a lot of experience across geographies, has been with Microsoft for over 15 years. And she's been into, the various transformational activities that Microsoft internally has gone through. She's participated in client-related transformations, and at the same time, she's been part of various product launches that have happened from Microsoft. Microsoft technologies are there in your landscape in one way or the other, whether it's in the form of collaboration or in the form of foundational CRM, finance systems, or in the form of insights, right? That we all use today. So Rekha, welcome on board. I know your introduction cannot be done in a few seconds here, but that's the opportunity that I had. So, but thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much, Kapil. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Next on board is Amanda. Amanda looks after our program management across the organization. She comes with a deep experience in driving complex transformation exercises through various large, globally distributed companies. I'm really glad to have her here because she can actually bring those insights from various companies who have actually gone through these challenges over a period of time. And hopefully some of the learnings from you, Amanda, would be very useful to the group here. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kapil. I'm happy to be here.
And Priya, she heads our product development. She's the SME who has been on Microsoft Dynamics platform for about 20 years plus. She's seen the evolution of the product across, and she's involved in all innovations, all product development activities that happen from SA Global. So with that, thank you for coming on, Priya. With that, I would want to kickstart this discussion, and I think there's a poll question here, which would be important to seek your views on. It's just to start our conversation. Nikhil, if you can get that posted, please. And as we get the kind of answer to this question, that what's that one major finance area that you are really looking to improve? I know all of these 4 areas are important to you, and in one way or the other, you would need to focus on all of them. But if I was to really ask you that, what's that one area that you cannot afford to miss, or that would be your first priority, then please, if you could let us know about that. I think it'll give us some information and tune our conversation as we go forward from here. But as the results come in for this, Rekha, let me first start with you here. And the topic of today's discussion is modern finance and accelerating the transformation through modern finance. But I think let's demystify modern finance a bit. So question to you is, what are the key tenets of modern finance, really?
Kapil, that's a fantastic question. When we look at modern finance, this is not something new. Most of us are probably going through it. It's about how we're leveraging technology and to improve partnership and also enabling growth and driving larger impact. So that's how we look at modern finance, at least from a Microsoft perspective. And And as we look at our own processes, it's also thinking about, how can we make it more efficient and effective, and how technology can help us drive this, right? And there are 4 different buckets we look at from a Microsoft perspective when we think about modern finance. One is, and almost like, every company has a set of challenges that we're going through, right? When we think about finance as a function today, what are we sitting on? We're sitting on a lot of legacy systems, many different disconnected databases, siloed, databases. And how do we make sense out of these, siloed things? And some of them we have been probably, depending on which company we're talking about, they are probably running some of these legacy systems for years, decades together. And then, the needs of the future are very different. So there are, and on the top of that, we're also operating in a very complex environment where, there's increasing risks and threats that are getting posed. And a lot of the stuff, sometimes, the pandemic, if there's one thing that it has taught us, is highlight a lot of manual and inefficient processes that each of us have been using. And most importantly, and if you think about the last 18 months, if there's one thing that we are seeing, how do you increase and create a culture of collaboration? These are some of the challenges that we are looking at. And when we look at these challenges from a Microsoft perspective, what we have done in the past couple of, I would say almost like, 1 to 2 decades is look at 4 different processes, four different things that we are primarily looking at. One is, financial analysis and reporting. The second one that we also are looking at is, strategy forecasting. A third pillar to modern finance that we are looking at is business process automation. And then there's a risk and compliance, the 4th pillar. And, in fact, I would also add, how do we increase collaboration, within our employees, right? That's almost like a 5th pillar. But today, let me focus on these 4 pillars, right? Because this has been the journey that we have been. But when we look at each one of those 4 pillars, there's something that is fundamental and foundational for each one of these pillars, and that's data. Without data, and this data is coming from multiple sources, and if without data, there's everything else, whatever we are building, it doesn't make any sense, right? There needs to be a lot of data governance, who's going to define what each one of those data elements are going to be super important, who the data governance, who's going to touch the data, who's going to access, who's going to input. All of these are fundamentals before we even start thinking about modern finance. Now, just touching upon each one of those aspects, first thing, financial analysis and reporting. Each one of us probably have gone through, we are using some kind of reporting things. And, today, what is the need of the hour? And if there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, how can we make timely decisions? Do we have the right set of information that can help enable us to make those decisions? And how can we get these systems and processes where finance leaders and the CFOs, they are able to harness the power of data to drive impact and to drive, make those decisions? That's number one thing. And what we have been doing at Microsoft is, bringing together these various systems. Today, we do have a data lake that sits on Azure, and then it's, we use Power BI on the top of it, where we pull data from close to 150 sources. And some of these are financial metrics, non-financial metrics, but, bringing together all of this. And depending on who the user is, we're able to create that level of information that people can access, all the way from the CEO to the seller on the ground to anybody sitting in the 150 plus countries that we operate on. They have access, but it's limited to their role, right? So that's number one thing, financial analysis and reporting. The second part of it is, strategy. The second pillar when I talk about transformation is strategy and forecasting. How we are actually leveraging the past data and understanding those trends to predict future. And this is where machine learning, artificial intelligence come into play. You're harnessing existing data to create forward-looking insights. And at Microsoft, if there's one thing that we have done in the last 18 months, it's being very predictable. In fact, when the pandemic hit us, we have gone back, back into 2007-8 when the financial crisis and the meltdown happened, and looked at what are the trends that we observed, and we used those insights to help predict, how do we prepare ourselves for the pandemic as well. And in fact, last year when we did the budget, we did the budget not for the entire 12 months, but the first 6 months, right? Our accuracy in terms of how close we were was close to 98% in a year of pandemic when everything was volatile. That's the power of how we have been leveraging technology and data to look at backward analytics to predict the future. Then the third pillar, of course, when we think about automation, right? There's a lot of tasks in finance. These are very repetitive, and they take a lot of time and mundane in most of the times. And when there's manual intervention, there's also human error that we're prone. And this is where I think, as a company, what we have done over the past several years is looking at each of those processes. Does this process need to be automated? What is the ROI? We don't automate just for the sake of automating, but also what is the benefit we are getting out of it? Does it really warrant us to automate? And trying to streamline as many processes as possible. There was a time when we had reporting, which 100 and odd subsidiaries plus subsidiaries we operate in, each of the reports pulling, everybody, each of the finance member pulling their own reports. But today there's RPAs that are actually done, do the reporting as soon as the month close is done, and everything is automated, right? Several such automations that we have done. And the last one I do want to touch upon is risk, because as a CFO, if there's one thing that keeps us awake, it's the trust that we actually, that we have shared with our customers, partners and all. And for that, managing our risks is super important. Risks in terms of, how we are managing our assets, our reputation and everything. And for that, what we've also looked at is, how are we leveraging technology to predict transactions which could be high risk. And even before, there was a time when compliance meant like, post facto after the transaction has happened. Now it was almost looking for a needle in a haystack. Today, with the help of technology, we're predicting what are the transactions that could be high risk and how do we make sure that we have the right checks and balances even before the transaction happens. So that's, Kapil, I know it's a long answer, but, for us, this has been the journey, and these are the 4 pillars around which digital transformation has been focused on.
Thank you, Rekha. I think you've touched upon some of the most important things that I think most of us, here would be thinking about. In fact, if you see the poll as well, the first thing that has got highlighted by our participants here is transformation of legacy systems, and the second focus is then on the forecasting and the strategic decision making. Now, interestingly, here the risk or the security is actually at 0%. But the way to probably, and we would probably need to ask the participants later on as well. But the way I think, we ask the question as what's the immediate priority? I think what shows here is that unless and until I'm able to really transform the systems that I'm sitting with, right, and I'm really able to get to a point where I can forecast better, I can take more strategic decisions. risk is a factor that I'm sitting on, right? It's a risk. It's an area that I'm worried about, but I know that I would not be able to solve this before I get to solve the first three areas which are there highlighted here, right? So maybe that's an interesting insight, but I think as you said in your conversation in between, that data is key here, right? Having the right information with the right people at the right time, right? And being able to take outcomes out of that is the most important thing that we need to focus on. I just want to touch upon, Rekha, a few softer aspects here, right? And it goes back to the conversation that we were having earlier, that there is an aspect of putting in the right technology. And with Microsoft platform on cloud, Azure at the back end, connected systems, integrations in place, all collaboration built in, it is still not easy when you actually step into a modern finance or a financial transformation, right? One of the key things that you alluded to was, data and associating the cultural transformation within the organization with that exercise is one of the key things that one needs to look at. Could you elaborate a bit on that? I think that would be a very useful insight for people here.
No, I think you said it, it teed it up very well. For us, digital transformation is not just digital transformation. It is actually almost a cultural transformation, right? And this has been the journey. And in fact, it has accelerated ever since, Satya became the CEO. Because at the end of the day, it all starts with the tone at the top in terms of, what we need to do and how we need to drive this across the organization. And I'll tell you, when I started in the company 15 years back, much of the time was spent debating, hey, whose number, what is the right number? Finance had a set of number, marketing had a set of number, the sellers had a set of number, and 50% of the meeting time was done, debating, which one is the most accurate number, right? From there, we moved on, when we created this central database, each one of us looking at the same set of data. But that journey didn't happen overnight for us. It almost said, are people leveraging the database that was created? So there were times when we used to get, hey, how many are actually accessing this data lake that we have created? There was almost transformatory metrics that, every subsidiary was tracking, 70% of the people are using. What happened to the remaining 30%? How many managers are using? How many leaders are using? So this was the kind of the tracking that we had to do so that people were adopting to the newer technology. Point number one. Point number two, it's also when we went into reviews at the end of the quarter or next quarter, the senior execs almost said, I'm not going to use PowerPoints anymore. I am going to do a review looking at, the dashboards that are already built. So it was almost, how we change the way we are doing. Leaders have changed the way they are doing reviews so that people, it's also forcing the folks on the ground to do the reviews. That's the second thing. And then, systems and processes, at the end of the day, it's about, are you measuring, tracking, monitoring behaviors, which will change the way things are getting adapted. And let's also remember that, each of this, anything, Rome was never built in a day. The digital transformation, when we think about it, it's a multi-year journey, right? For us, it was almost a journey of 2 decades for Microsoft. The first couple of years, we were just saying, hey, there's a lot of transactional activities. Let's go outsource this to our BPO partners who are probably really good in terms of what they do. And so that we within finance, we focus on what really matters, how we are able to partner with the business. So remembering that it's a multi-year journey, and in that journey, it's important to have the smaller wins, because if we are thinking of building everything in a single day, we need to make sure that at least there's some amount of small wins, that small successes that will motivate people, and people are able to see light at the end of the day, right? And the last one I would say is we need to think differently in terms of compositions of our own teams also. Even within finance, we have data scientists today. We have, a financial engineering team within Microsoft, within finance in Microsoft. So you need to have different set of profiles within the team. Some set of folks who are actually innovating. Then there are certain set of people who are, accelerating the adoption, right? And then there will be like, broad-based adoption as well. The composition of, whom you are hiring. And in fact, when I talk to some of the CFOs, more and more of the CFOs are also thinking about, hey, do I need just traditional finance folks in today's world, or is there a different set of profiles that we need to bring in on board? So a food for thought in terms of, when we think of modern finance, this is also something you may want to think about. And last thing, any digital transformation. Gone are the days when we say that, hey, we are just buying a product off shelf and implementing. No, you need to really think about, every business today is a digital business. Think of every single, even the traditional businesses. If there's one thing pandemic has done, your customers are demanding you to be a digital business, which means all your processes and everything that we're operating today are going to be, they have to be digitalized. It's not just, I buy software, I go implement. It's thinking through your processes and see how you're digitalizing each one of those processes.
That's a very interesting perspective, and I want to use this opportunity and get to Amanda a bit as well, because she's been in the middle of these transformation exercises across. And to that extent, Amanda, when we were talking earlier, you had a point of view in terms of what are the key aspects or the key enablers to drive transformations of this nature in the organization, right? And now Rekha has alluded to that a bit from a perspective of the cultural transformation. What else do you think is really required for an organization to think of when they're embarking on this journey?
Okay, that's a great question, Kapil, and I just want to pick up on a couple of things that Rekha said as well, which just completely resonate, with me. And first of all, the tone at the top and the outcomes that are being set from that top leadership. The second was change management and adoption. You can spend a lot of time and money changing technically your system, but unless the people that are operating the system are going to be driving those processes, are actually making their changes as well, their personal change journeys as well, then you are unlikely to achieve the outcomes that you set out for. So, and that's something that we're seeing coming through more and more when we're talking to customers, is that their desire to incorporate change management into their project. And then the other thing that also resonated really well was the sort of small wins and celebrating success, and that sort of hooks into the change management theory as well. But if you were to ask me, what the most important things in terms of driving the transformation in the organisation, I think the first thing would be about understanding the overall outcomes that you're trying to achieve in your finance transformation, and that could be changing the structure and the roles and responsibilities, and not actually the technical, and the technology at all. It might be about specialising people for the types of activity that they do, and we see more and more sort of transactional services and operational finance teams being specialised in those sort of back office type functions, and then on the flip side, teams that are all about insights and forecasting and growing the business, setting the strategy. In terms of the or it could, your change might be all about reporting, or it might be reduction of operational costs. So the first thing is to really think about and understand what is it that you're trying to achieve with your finance function. It's also good to have a little look at what others are doing in your peer group, in the same markets that you operate in, and also what are the best companies, what are the companies that are operating at the top of their game doing in their finance functions, and then how does your organisation measure up to that, and what is it realistic for you to want to aim for? And coming back to Rekha's point about setting goals that are achievable, and the small successes, so you can see your progress on the transformation journey. The third thing I sort of say is really be clear about the scope. If you're embarking on a transformation project, really set the scope. And once you've decided on your scope and the boundaries, then think about the principles that will apply. And writing down those principles means that you can go back to them. And I've done that a number of times with different companies that I've worked, with their transformation on, and it's so valuable. It seems like a strange thing to do at the start, but really setting your scope, understanding the principles that you're going to live by and that your design will live by, whether that's technical or organisational. Really think about what those principles might be. And then the sort of final kind of point I'd like to pull out is just measure your success with KPIs, and that's if you understand what your outcome's looking to be, make sure you measure what that looks like before you start, during your journey, and then once you've completed and beyond, and that will help you understand what's working, what's not working, what you thought this piece of technology might do or this new process might do. Is it actually working? Can I demonstrate and see the changes in those KPIs? And that's what will drive the real success.
That's good, Amanda. So now I think there's a very interesting theme that's emerging, right? The way I'm understanding here, because so while we're talking about the various aspects of modern finance, data becomes one of the key elements into it. But at the same time, it's important to realize that it's a journey and it's not something that you can achieve, with the click of a button. So it requires changes in your organization, requires people to change and adopt it, along with the tech that would really help you drive. But then I think it's important for you to achieve that. It's important that you identify what are your priorities, because you cannot do everything together, right? And it takes time to adopt. So understand the priorities, understand to that effect, define the right scope that you can actually take through. And then hopefully, it would also be about creating the right team for that. And Amanda, I'll come back to you a bit on that. But I just wanted to, talk about the poll responses, and I'm seeing there are only 11 responses so far. My humble request to everybody on the call to really submit their responses to this particular question. As of now, to this question, which is, what's the what are the prioritized areas that you have when you're looking at the impacts coming out of their transformation, right? Does emerge out that project profitability, which is one of the key things for ITS companies, because we execute different type of projects, and our core asset is the people who put their time on these projects, right? So how do you look at the impact of profitability across these projects? And especially in a scenario where the teams are globally located in different, kind of formats of contracts with them, I think that becomes a very important thing. And I think to that effect, how do you look at the revenue recognition, do the forecasting rather in terms of, how your cash flows would look at is an important aspect that comes in. And then, of course, I think that's the corollary to that is also the client insights, because if you have all this connected information, you will have a better information about what the client is doing, where it's going and things like that. So data does, I think the theme is really getting validated by the participants here as well. There's this one thing which I still want to ask you, Rekha, specifically, and Priya would touch upon in terms of showing some of these things in real life. You said about automation, right? And automation could be in the space of RPA, which is process automation. It could also be in terms of, really getting to a point where decision making is becoming more or less automated at times, right? Rule based and formula driven, right? And at the same time, it also reflects on how this information is really provided to people so that you know that it's serviced faster. What's your practical take on this? Where do you have some examples that you can talk about which really, you know, kind of gave a fundamental push to this transformation exercise in Microsoft?
Yeah, see, there are several things that we have automated, right? For example, you know, the points that you made, a lot of times, you know, where we have leveraged automation is, you know, where is our team spending a lot of manual time? You know, what can we do to automate these things, right? Automating the process, streamlining the process, and things like that. You know, I'll give you simplest of the examples. People, a lot of times what happen, you know, they have a number of queries in terms of policies and all, and they keep reaching out, and this is like, you know, and it's the policies are out there, but they don't want to go see it. And they want somebody to interpret these things for them. So we have, you know, built compliance chatbots, which is automated solution. You know, it was taking away a lot of our the bandwidth for our teams. And similar thing that we have also done, you know, when we do business, you know, we want to make sure that we're doing business with partners who have enough credit and all of that. And when we have sellers who are leveraging, you know, partners across the globe, and that's something, you know, they would ask, you know, hey, do we have enough credit with this partner? Is the partner in a good capacity? So our credit and collections team, you know, built some thing, you know, which helped the sellers make those decisions by themselves instead of somebody sitting there and answering this. And then there's another example where, you know, this, you know, for our external reporting, where we were, you know, reporting numbers. And this is where, you know, everything was automated because it was previously done manually. It was, you know, the text was picking, had to be picked up from financial statements and all. It was complete manual, and this was entirely linked between Excel and Word, and, you know, it has automated the entire stuff, which helped, you know, error prone, because these are external statements which we are sharing with the state, and we had to be super careful about not reporting wrong set of numbers. And it was completely automated, saved a lot of work for our teams. And then there's also, you know, other examples in tax reporting, which was completely automated. Each one of those things, Kapil, has saved a lot of time for our field teams.
Thank you. I think some of these examples would really excite the CFOs here, because this is straight money saving, right? And more than that, it is also accuracy, I think, because sometimes we don't realize that the manual labor is also prone to errors, right? And some of these, let's say, hyper automation kind of activities can really bring in the efficiency, both in terms of the cost saving as well as in terms of the errors that you avoid in the entire scheme of things. And we have seen multiple examples of success in this area as well. Before we go further, I'm seeing Mr. Jaykumar has some question. His hand has been raised for quite some time. I'm sorry, Jaykumar. Could you really put your question in the chat? I don't know whether your microphone is enabled here or not.
Sure, we would just request him to put it in the chat because the microphone isn't enabled currently for the attendees, but we'd request you to please post it in the chat. But meanwhile, great conversation. Over to you, panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so just coming back to you, Amanda, for a quick bit here. I think there is an element to discuss. What's that right team that can actually take you through this journey? Because it's vendors, it's people coming in from the organization that's implementing things, it's people coming in from your organization, and often CFO doesn't really have the time to really, you know, kind of be there in each of these discussions, although he is the primary owner of some of these activities. So how do you compose a team that, you know, kind of gives you the guarantee that you would succeed?
Okay, and that's a good question, actually, Kapil. And I mean, I think the first thing is to recognise that it's not a part-time job. You know, if you're taking your transformation seriously, then you need to think about dedicating people and leadership time to that transformation. I think in my experience, a mix of internal and external people works quite well. So, you know, the sorts of skill sets that you might not have in-house that you could potentially bring in would be the sort of external expertise for project management, for example, change management we mentioned earlier, application knowledge, and then from an internal perspective, the thing that you need to bring to the party is the people with the business know-how, the job role, function understanding for their specialist areas that are in scope. And you know, in terms of bringing that team together, you know, a collaborative approach is quite key to get the best from to get the best outcome. And so it's also worth thinking about, particularly if you're bringing in, you know, suppliers or third parties. It's also worth thinking about the commercial construct that you want to operate with, and what kind of commercial construct will drive collaboration through the teams, and actually what will create a divide between the teams. And the best and most successful projects are those where you've got one team, no badges, everybody's working together, and they're all bringing their own expertise to the party. So that those are sort of two key things: the mix of internal and external people, but also be careful about the commercial construct. And sadly, I've seen projects in the distant past where the commercial construct had driven a destructive nature amongst the teams. So it's really quite important to get that right. The project team would ideally be 100% committed to the project. So if they've come from the business and they've got a day job, then think about how you can, you know, supplement and backfill those roles so that their day job gets done and they can properly focus on the changes that they're going to be making. And then it's worth investing some time in setting the correct governance and roles and responsibilities. So really think about how your project is going to be governed and managed, and also who's actually got responsibility and accountability for what. And the best projects with the best outcomes have really done that in a good way up front. It's a bit of investment up front to actually write those things down and properly understand who's going to be doing what. But it pays dividends later, I would say. The other point that's, you know, where I've seen projects work quite well, particularly with sort of finance transformation, where you're looking at the key processes. They've got global process owners for P2P, R2R, O2C, for example, and those people plus the technical solution architect people make up something that we call the design authority. If you don't have a design authority, then it's worth thinking about how would I go about setting up some design governance, whether that's technical design or whether it's organizational design. What about, you know, who needs to be involved? Who needs to give authority to how that design is going to look as you go through the project? Because there's always going to be choices, options, and decisions that need to be made, and that design authority will be key to navigate your way through. And then some other things that it's always worth including someone from internal audit. So you have a good program set up, you've got good habits in terms of your project, in your project processes through the program, but also that you don't make any errors that are going to cause you a problem with your external auditors, later on. So having those guys coming in, having a watching brief, it's a really good add to the project. And then I think I mentioned already change management. I would always make sure you've got a change manager working with you, working with your organisation, helping you understand how to manage the resistance or how to communicate and getting the best out of your people. I think that's probably all I would say on the team, Kapil.
So fundamentally, you're saying that a combination of team, which is the right skills both internally and externally as one team, though committed accountability towards the project from the stakeholders. I think you did mention about that right mindset to achieve, and I think Rekha also alluded to it earlier that even the seniors, the execs in the organization started forcing that mandate through the organization, which really created that mindset of achieving some of these goals. And then of course governance and change management that you said are the most important things. So with that, thank you, Amanda and Rekha. Let me just give Priya a chance because she wanted to show us a few of these magic tricks, through Teams and through the platform. What could be done very quickly? She has very small time, but very little time for this. But we can schedule a detailed session to really show you the power of the platform. This would probably just be a start to that. Priya, over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kapil. I think there's another poll question as well that has come up meanwhile, which will also be an important one to get answered from the people attending the forum so that I can focus more on what is your preference. Is it a role-based workspace or more of a chatbot and a virtual assistant? What's it that's the people out over here, the CFOs over here are interested in? Well, moving on, meanwhile, till you answer these questions, I just wanted to talk about modern finance as Rekha and Amanda have been speaking in depth about it. So for a change, I will not get in, though it's an ERP's demo, I'm not going to get into the ERP. That's so much so of modern finance over here that we will get into directly into Teams and see all the data and analytics. I think the transforming in from the legacy system was the first poll's results of 45% over there, where we're looking at key KPIs coming into being able to see it in the Power BI. All right, so I will just quickly share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. All right, so this is your Power BI, your balance sheet of across all your entities being available to you on Teams without having to go into 100 different clicks into the ERP and getting it to you. It's going to be available to you at your fingertips on the Teams platform itself. So pretty much where you can look at the data over here and then quickly chat up with your teams and improve on what's going or what's leading to these kind of results. Also, the other fact over here, what's it that you're seeing is not an entire laundry list of, these are the various assets, so these are the various liabilities, but a crux of what exactly people at your level, the CFOs would want to see, just the total of your assets, your liabilities, your equity, your current ratio. You're looking at the report as a management type, or if you're looking at the statutory reports, you would see all of this rechanging it based on statutory, based on tax, based on the various types of reporting, how your EBITDA, your taxes are getting, how your profits are being changing or represented. This can be over a period of 12 months or 6 months, depending on what is the time frame that you'd like to see. So it's as simple as that. You would be able to play around with this. And if you don't want to see all of your companies, you want to look at one particular company in specific as well, you'd be able to do that too. Or remove any of the companies and see the remaining, so all of that. So this is some of your data. This need not necessarily be only from one system. It could be from multiple systems, even your legacy system where you just put everything into data lake, as Rekha was initially talking about the journey of Microsoft during in the towards modern finance. So you don't have to keep it all in one place. It can all be in different places, but still make use of your data lake and Synapse and get it over here onto Power BI. So this is one aspect of it. Similarly, we have got all other reports. So I will just take you to a whole list of reports that we call it as a finance insights across. So based on this, generally it's the balance sheet and then going on to your profit and loss account report is what generally the CFOs are interested. But I think in the poll that came up, there was more an interest in seeing the profit profitability by project. So I'll quickly leave out the profit and loss report and move on to the revenue by project group and project reconciliation. So this is basically a report which gives you the project profitability depending on the type of project. So in typically we've seen that it's normally a T&M or a fixed price percentage completion or based on a contract completion. So these are the various contract project types that we see. So this is a quick and a handy report that will give you the profitability across entities, again, across the different various types of projects. Of course, you have the ability to drill down further and see, okay, what exactly is the project that you have got over here, which is driving that kind of revenue. So you can just do a click and you'll be able to get out that data. So this is a little bit on the project group by project contract. You'll be able to see that. But of course, you've got your other reports as well. That is your profit and loss account, wherein in your profit and loss account, you have got all of your, your COGS, your total services. You've got your various reports. So let me just pull this out so that it's better for better visibility's sake. Let me get it out. Fit it to page. Right. So I think it is doing something. Meanwhile, let me click on year-to-date report. This year-to-date report helps you kind of see what is your total reporting, your profit and loss by your various buckets. So this is pretty much at total COGS, total expenses, other revenue. If you want to do a little bit of a drill down as well, you can click down and then you'll be able to break it down and see this data actually going down one level lower to the types of expenses as well. So while all of this, we understand that data is key, is very important. The analytics is important. This is one aspect of it. While we were discussing, Kapil, I think Rekha also touched upon a very important point, even Amanda as well. The more you do the process automation, that is where the success is. That's where we're leading towards in modern finance. So for that, we do have something called as FinBot. So that's something that we have built as well. Just give me a second. Let me go back to Teams. We have got a bot, which is a finance bot and has all of these various capabilities of being able to process a vendor invoice. I'll come to that in a while. Meanwhile, these are all the reporting capabilities that the bot has, wherein it will give you your actual versus budget, balance sheet, all of that at a click of a button. So you don't have to really go into the ERP, look through 100 menus to get to these reports. Also, it has the ability to kind of merge these reports and be able to come up with one singular report, consolidating, especially when you have multiple legal entities. So before we get into that, I will just quickly show a repeatable business process that is there. That is your pending vendor invoice. This is a typical use case where you see in an AP scenario where there's a vendor invoice. The vendor just sends the invoice over to the AP team. I'll just quickly go over to my emails and say, this is what I have received as an invoice from my vendor. So this, in the current day scenario, what people would do is look at this invoice, go ahead and type that in the application, in the ERP, and then be able to process it. Whereas over here, I'm just going to click on vendor process invoice over here. So what it does while that is happening in the background is the vendor invoice that has been sent to your email is actually the invoice is actually being stored on the SharePoint. That data is being taken by the RPA and is through the some kind of integration. It is through Power Automate. It is then being sent to the ERP. So before, oh, this is even more better. My battery is running low. Just give me a second. All right. Sorry. Okay, so I think coming back up here.
Just a quick time check. We have just about 6 minutes left. And
yeah, I think I'll be done in another 2 minutes, Kapil. Okay. So here what it does is it pops out all the vendor invoices that are supposed to be there. We can just So I just say I want to proceed with one of the vendor invoice, and I just enter this particular vendor invoice, say I want to go ahead and process this. Okay, so I just click on that and say when hyphen ANV hyphen 9056. And yes, this vendor invoice based on a particular, I just give mine over here. It will send an email saying that, okay, this is the person who has processed this invoice. All right. And that's why it asks your email ID. Once you're done with that, it immediately goes into the application and into the ERP and resides as an invoice. Since we're short of time, let me quickly open up what it does over here diagrammatically. Basically, once this bot has processed it, it goes in as a vendor invoice, and then in the ERP, it goes ahead for approvals and payments as the normal process. You can even automate having all of these emails coming in play. So that's one of the key things. And the only other thing that I want to touch upon is the ability to be able to reconciled reports. So basically all of these reports, when you process for it, it is going to store in a particular location and going to be available to you as a reconciled report summary, wherein you will be able to quickly reconcile across entities, multiple reports. Sorry, you can open multiple reports having with various data entities, data of balance sheet and profit and loss reconciled with the number of accounts. So let me just quickly open that report. For some reason, it's taking some time. Okay, so maybe yeah, there we go. There's the report. So we have a trial balance across your entities. Your ledger-wise summary is here, and it helps a lot over here when you have the differences between the accounts. So these are some of the things that can be achieved through a bot and through some of these intelligent tools that have been built in. We do have a roadmap for all of the AR and for customer aging as well, vendor aging as well, to be included as part of this journey. So I think these are all some of the tips and tricks that would help really make our journey towards more finance more modern. With that, I would like to conclude. Over to you, Kapil.
Thank you, Priya. I know this was a short session, guys, and I do appreciate that, this doesn't give the full power of the platform. But what I really would request is that please drop in a note, and we would be happy to arrange a detailed session that truly shows you what you can achieve out of Power, on the overall Power platform, whether it's automation, whether it's reports, whether it's aspects of various quick apps that can help you really take things much faster ahead. But in any case, I think we are almost towards the end, but I do want to can open up the questions. Please put in your questions, even if you're not able to answer all questions. My promise, we'll get back to you with the answers for each of those questions. So Bhavna, to you, please.
Sure. Thank you so much. Firstly, fantastic, panel discussion, Kapil. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm sure all the CFOs who are attending our boardroom today would have thoroughly got some great insights. And thank you so much, firstly, for participating in all the polls, because the polls really determined what you're looking out for, and the answers could be curated according to that. So thank you for everyone for the wonderful participation. Well, with this, I'd really like to urge everyone to post in any questions or comments, if any, during the course of the wonderful boardroom. I love interacting. Let's just visualize ourselves on that wonderful boardroom meeting of ours, wherein we'll all are sitting. And I know this is a virtual format, but we'd love you to now post in the questions. So we've got, I believe, a comment coming in, and rather a question. Kapil, I'll just read it out in interest of our panelists today. Clearly, the underlying theme is the way an organization uses its first and third-party data. What value do you bring for organizations currently looking at ways to leverage data better? Kapil, would you like to direct this forward?
Yeah, I think Rekha, would you want to pick this question up? This is all related to the third-party information that's coming in.
Yeah, Chaitra, first of all, thanks for the question. The number one thing, if there's one the asset that everybody is sitting on is that data. And data has become the new oil. Now with sustainability, we can't even call that it's the new oil, right? We need to figure out, a better term than saying it's the new oil. But it's about, what is that insights that, your current data is able to provide to understand your customers better, driving in insights out of it so that you're able to better drive both the top line or optimize your expenses so that you can drive your bottom line as well. And it can happen in many ways, right? It can happen in terms of, driving your customers, increasing your new revenue streams. It could be minimizing, any amount of risk that you have, optimizing your expenses. It can happen in many, and also putting your resources behind growth, the revenue streams that give you the most amount of return as well. And those are the insights that you can get out of your current data. And at any given point of time, it completely depends on what's the problem you want to solve. For example, I can give you an example. One of our customers, credit banking customer, they were looking at, hey, how do I make sure that, I reduce the number of defaults that are happening? And then the data that they were looking at is, whom are we issuing these loans to? Are these employed, not employed? Some of these things could be external data as well, right? And then they realized, with the machine learning, the coefficient of correlation and all of that, when you have 7 different factors, you can see how each one of those factors are driving those decisions. So, and that's one example. The other example, during pandemic, each one of us have used, cash has become the most important thing. When we looked at internally our data, and we had to predict, how much cash do we need to sustain, next 6 months, 8 months, are our partners able to pay? In which country we have cash challenges? We were looking at historical trends and then predicting this could be the potential, cash collections, how our accounts receivable is going to pan out. So it's a very large, broad question that you're asking, but it depends on what problem are we trying to solve, and what are the different parameters. And data today, it can be in structured, unstructured format. It's coming from external party places as well.
Maybe, Rekha, thanks for that, but I probably can add a few more points. I know it's a very broad question, Chaitra, but essentially from a platform perspective, right? What you get really is a single source for you to consume data from. So at the back, integration of various data sources, building up the accessibility of that data in a democratized way, that the right information is available to the right stakeholders at the right time, right, is truly the power of the platform. And to the point that Rekha said, once the power of the platform is to say that, you have all this information at one place in real time. But at the same time, it's important for the organization to decide what it wants to do with that data. Now, if you're really looking at a situation of predicting your cash flows, or you're looking at your predictability around project profitability or customer profitability, or even potential for you to really sell the products, right? I think the platform provides you that ability from a perspective of the professionals like us who are deep into professional services industry. We have ways to tell you how some of these challenges can be met on the historical information that is available. But then I think it's a combination of discussion that one needs to have. I think it's an interesting question. Nevertheless, we should probably connect later and have a bit of a deep dive on that. Bhavna, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kapil, definitely, I just urge everyone, in case if you'd like to ask any questions live, we've allowed that feature as well. All you've got to do is just raise your hand and the team is going to allow the mic in the back end. Also, I'd request, since one of our attendees had raised the hands, Jaya Kumar, if you'd like to come in live, we've allowed the mic. So if in case you would like to, please unmute yourself and we'll be happy to answer the same right now. So meanwhile, while I wait for our attendees to raise their hands in case if they'd like to chat with us live, Mukesh, of course, would like a detailed demo. Mukesh, we will be in touch with you on the same. Krishna, meanwhile, comments and having an email ID to revert with the questions on the Power BI and the bots that Priya has just talked about. So Krishna, we'll be in touch with you on the same. Also, I'll quickly move on to our next one, which is of Sushma. So Sushma asked that as a growing organization, we use multiple systems for different functions. While there are consolidated efforts being undertaken, are there any quick actions that we can take to enable a self-serve platform for finance and project functions? Now, of course, there was a poll around it as well. So Kapil, would you like to direct that to our esteemed panelists and your views on the same as well?
I think I can probably give my perspective on it, and free to listen to others from the panel as well. So I think, Sushma, most of our organizations are in that stage because over the journey, we have adopted multiple systems and hence we have different systems in the organization. Because of acquisitions as well, there are new organizations, newer systems that keep coming in. I think one of the quicker steps that you could really take is that use the power of Azure and Power Platform to really get all those data elements together. The longer term solution would of course be to use a platform like Dynamics 365, which is which is easy to kind of roll out and consolidate all information that you have, right? So that's of course the longer term solution. That should be the foundational decision that you should be taking. But at the same time, in the short term, it's easier to really go the route of getting all those sources of information into Azure, create a connected data model on top of that, and then probably use Power BI and the overall Power Platform to deliver the right information to the right people at the right time, right? I always would keep repeating this statement, but I think that's a quicker step that you could take. Without having much information, it's very difficult to give you a detailed answer, but happy to get into a discussion with the team to really, kind of give you a way that can help you really in this journey.
Right. Thank you so much, Kapil, for that. Well, we've just got a couple of minutes and we respect everyone's time. I'd just like to bring in, so Anurag also would like a detailed demo. Anurag, we'll be in touch with you on the same. Nitin would want some further details on the FinBots apart from a detailed demo. So we're getting a lot of response from all of you. So thank you for that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with just 3 minutes more to go, I just request Kapil, it's been a fantastic discussion, and how much, though I would love to encourage more questions, but we're really in short of time. But we'd love to have you, cover up and probably summarize and give your closing thoughts on the wonderful discussion we just had, and your parting thoughts before we officially conclude with the boardroom today. Over to you, Kapil.
Thank you, Bhavna. I think first of all, I must thank all my panelists here for giving the time and really sharing the information. To all my participants here, I know this was a short discussion, but we are all busy in our kind of work life. I'm glad that you gave us this opportunity to talk to you about some of the power of this platform. Also talk about the experience that we have in these journeys. My request to you would be that I'm sure there are a lot of questions that you have. If you have any of those that you think you would want to discuss with us, please feel free to drop in a note. Post this session, you will get the complete information about this session. You will have the email IDs that you have requested, and my team would get back to you to kind of connect in a detailed way and really help you answer some of those questions. It's a great platform. It's a view to really build up a futuristic roadmap for the organizations, because the platform itself is evolving very strongly, whether you talk about the foundational elements of the ERP, the CRM systems, the connected data fabric that lays below, or it's the collaboration and that reach of information through channels like Teams, right? I think Microsoft as a product platform is really taking the game further ahead, building up that metaverse, which is really allowing the true collaboration between the employers, the employees, the suppliers, or your clients, right? And I think this is all that foundation that would lead towards that truly hybrid organization where the IDs are also, kind of really virtual in that life, and you could work from anywhere and collaborate better. So there's a lot that we can talk to you about. There's a lot that we can discuss. I really hope that we are able to help you in some of your journeys, and this session has given some value in that journey too. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you again, panelists. Thank you again, Bhavna, and the entire TrustCon team as well to arrange this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Kapil.
you.
I'd like to humbly thank Rekha, Amanda, and Priyadarshini for your valuable insights and your valuable time as well today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with this, it brings us to the end of the CXO Boardroom, and truly it's been an inspiring one. Those were absolutely some thought-provoking insights on the role of modern finance in accelerating business transformation. And now, on behalf of everyone, it is indeed my pleasure to make a few closing remarks and express gratitude to all those who made it to the virtual boardroom. First of all, I'd like to thank all our esteemed speakers for their time and effort taken to share their deep knowledge and experiences through their sessions and presentations today. Today's event explicitly highlighted on the role of modern finance in accelerating transformation, and thus I'd like to thank sa.global and Microsoft for taking this opportunity to enlighten us with their rich knowledge and experience. With this, I thank you all for joining us. It was a pleasure having you all. Please enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe and cheers. This is me, Bhavna Bhatia, signing off for today, but we'll all stay connected in our virtual space. Thank you all for joining us.